Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, Wednesday to all our listeners. Today on Health Matters, I am talking to my very dear friend, Barrie Thomas, who has kindly offered to come and chat with us today about fitness and getting mature, seasoned, this more senior sort of fitness advocate
All right,
for
easy with the senior and the mature and all right, easy.
Yes, I will hold back on all the mature and all that type of stuff. But the important thing is that Barrie and I have known each other for decades from the start of our careers when we were very young whippersnappers, and I started modeling. Barrie was one of the first models I came across, black models back in must have been in the 80s now.
I have no idea
And
what she's talking about. I was born in 1980. Okay, let's move on.
So I met Barrie back there looking very beautiful, suave and sophisticated, working for Dyke and Dryden. They're down in Kensington. I remember him being on the walkway, on the catwalk, and basically sashaying his stuff over many, many years with all the beautiful Black people that were in London. And then following on from that, we happened to work in the same building in Covent Garden in Jubilee Hall Clubs. He was teaching classes there, and he's done a mixture of both, as well as being quite a fantastic host and radio and TV presenter. So I introduce everyone to Barrie Thomas, who knows a bit more about fitness than the average bloke. And as you know, I've been in the fitness and health industry for over 30 years. I've written about fitness. I'm known as a wellness expert. I've run a spa. I've run a wellness center. I run retreats. I write books. So all of it is on the web. So today that's enough about us. Barrie, would you like to add anything about yourself?
I think you've covered everything, but starting with today is Wednesday, not Tuesday.
Shows you what
I'm
type of
supposed to
week
be
I'm
the
having.
elderly one here. Okay.
Well, my brain is just on a totally different level these days.
She's got too
There's
much
so
going
much.
on. She's too busy and she's taking
Absolutely.
time to still educate people and have this podcast. So, hats off to her. But yes, pretty much what the lady said. I come from a fashion background, was a model in the 80s, but did start in the fitness industry. I can remember it as clear as day from 1988. So
Wow.
that was my first times with Fabienne, who you know well.
Yes, our
And
great teacher, mentor.
started
Yes,
Dance Works, and it was basically
yes,
would be going to Dance Works to do our auditions as models. And I saw this class and thought, I want to do this. Um,
yes,
and basically just joined as a novice. And then from then she said, well, I think you've got the potential to be an instructor. And how it
yes,
was when you can't see me, look at that guy at the front, and I'm looking to see who she's talking about because you can't possibly be me. And then she said,
yes,
you've got the potential to be an instructor, and I had an interest in it. I had an interest in it, so the two careers were running side by side,
yes.
basically.
For many of us, yes, I've been.
Yeah,
It
they
was
were
always
running side by
fitness and
side.
other stuff. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, that's basically my story, and it's gone from, you know, fashion to fitness to music to because all of them have
Yes,
been interested in my life, and I'm fortunate to
and
say that I do the things that I love and enjoy.
yes. Well, I feel absolutely passionate about people remaining healthy as they grow older because I've seen the results of doing nothing and how vulnerable and weak we can become as adults, even in our 50s and 60s, where we still are in our prime. But as we age, there are certain things that we should be doing to help us to remain fit and healthy. And one of the things that my mum taught me was that you have to keep moving, and that whether it's walking, getting up, sitting down, little squats, all the everyday activities can become lost as you age. And even if you're not in a fixed routine or in a class like Pilates or yoga or anything like that, or indeed going to the gym, and we spent many decades in studios and in gyms and stuff like that. But you need to keep moving. What do you think about that, Barrie? That concept of if you don't use it, you lose it in actual
Well,
fact.
literally, that's basically what it is.
Mm.
As people age, they seem to think that, well, you've got two trains of thought, which are both extremes. You either think,
Yes.
you've got those who think, oh, I'm too old to do that now, I'm too old to do this now. So they sit.
Mm.
You sit still, and as you say, you don't use it, you lose it. Because in not moving, you are encouraging the lack of flexibility, the lack of movement. And
Yes, the aging process is
well, it's
accelerating.
not even just the aging process, because I think even if you're a younger person and you
Yes.
stop your activity level, it then is hard for you to move. And then it
Yeah.
comes into that, oh, it's just too difficult. I can't be bothered. And that's the
Yes.
demise and decline. So I think whichever age group you are, you have to keep your activity levels up.
Yes.
What happens is, as you age, the way your activity levels continue changes. So,
Yes.
I don't expect you to be doing big squats when you're in your 60s with, 200 pounds on your back. And
Yeah.
all of that
No,
is
we
not
wouldn't want.
necessary,
No.
but the fact of activity remains throughout your life. Always do as much as you can. And
Yes.
when you do less than you can, that's when you start to lose your fitness, your strength, your flexibility. So,
Yeah.
whichever age group you are in life, you always try to do as much as you can so that you're at the top of your ability. And it's not about being in comparison to anyone else.
Yeah. It's not
It's about,
competitive. Yeah.
yes,
It's
it
never.
is really about you being at the top of your level of fitness and capabilities.
So we hit upon a couple of items there. So we're talking about consistency. So for us, we've always exercised. So it's really important for us to maintain a level of movement because if we actually stopped, it would be a big problem. But I always think for, as you mentioned, the people that are older that perhaps have not done anything in their life, they can still start and make
Like anything, it's
incredible
never
gains.
too late to start and it's never
Yes,
too late to learn.
you can make incredible gains. You've just got to start slowly. So sometimes I've seen some people, come into the gym all full of all this enthusiasm to get started, and they push themselves actually a bit too much for their fitness level, and then they end up getting injured, and then they
Injured.
stop and do nothing. So what we want to really tell listeners is that you should really start slowly, make sure you've got the right appropriate clothing or equipment to do the job, and make sure that you've got good instruction so that you learn proper techniques.
This is it. Now, I
The
mean,
techniques is a major thing. How many times have we seen people in the gym or in classes just throwing themselves about with no technique? Fabian taught us the skill and the perfection of technique is coordination is a component of fitness. You can't be just throwing yourself about here, there, and everywhere, and say, "Well, I've done it, and I'm improving my fitness." There is a modality, there is a way of performing exercises that actually makes you fitter. Would you agree with that?
yes, I would. I would agree with that. The clothes and everything like that. Yes, the right attire,
Yes.
become an
What you feel
industry. So
comfortable in.
that's a whole other conversation, because you don't have to be wearing the most expensive branded clothes to go to a gym to get the best out of your fitness.
No.
However, the important things are that you're working at your level safely,
Yes.
primarily safely, which is
Yes.
about working within your parameters and capabilities of where you are.
Yes.
And as you say, having correct instruction. The technique is 100%,
Yeah.
110% of whatever
Yes,
you
that's right.
achieve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only whatever you achieve, but achieving it without injury. because
Yes.
when you do things badly, you're susceptible to injury. That
Yes.
means you have to take time off, which interrupts your consistency. So,
Yes.
technique is everything. And the number of times I look at people and I think, okay, even taking myself when I was teaching classes,
Yes.
when how I used to teach in the beginning with the experience, how I used to then later teach is completely different. Because in the beginning, you think it's about your performance. And if I'm doing it, they're just looking at me. Yes, look at
Yes.
me. You
Yes.
know, as we
But
know, a lot of aerobic instructors are frustrated performers that didn't really
yes, there
get
are.
to the stage.
Yes,
But then
that's
as you
right.
go on, you realize actually, this isn't my workout. This
Yeah.
is their workout.
Yes.
So, really and truly, I'm not here to work out and do everything. I demonstrate the first part. I
Yes.
leave the front row, who are usually the proficient ones, they want to be at the front. We all know that.
Yes.
And then I'm walking around saying, tuck your stomach
Yeah.
in, get your
Correction.
chest
Yes.
up, your shoulders
Yes.
back, because, technique does get compromised. Number one, when you're working with weights. Number two, as you get tired through the workout, your
Yes,
technique
that's right.
is compromised. That's when your instructor is to come in to
Yes.
say, get your bottom under, tilt your pelvis, open your chest, get your shoulders back, get your head tall. Imagine that
Yes.
piece of string to the top of your head, pull yourself up. That's what the
Absolutely.
instructor is supposed to be doing, not at the front performing.
Yes. I suppose people are frightened of the cost involved of, being involved with personal trainers and people like that, or gym instructors, or some teachers, because some of it is quite expensive. But there is YouTube, there's instruction manuals and many other aids that can teach you, because the responsibility is your own to make sure that you're
100%.
safe.
And I always
And
say
as
that your health and your
yeah,
fitness is 100% your responsibility. You can go
responsibility.
to other people who will help you, but the
Yes,
interest has to come from you.
yes, that's right. And so you have to take a deep interest in educating yourself about how your unique body works, and what are the best exercises for you. I believe that as you get older, there are a variety of exercises you need to do. So it's weight bearing exercise becomes increasingly important, because we don't want the disintegration of the muscle, which causes a lot of people to have falls, hip replacement, knee replacements, ankles, spraining ankles. All sorts of things can go on because of muscle deterioration. And what I would like to see as we get older is more older, our generation and older, say even from 40s onwards, you have to invest, yes, in the cardio aspect. I mean, we were doing a lot of things as nutters, cardio wise, doing lots and
Crazy,
lots of car
crazy.
classes and stuff. But as you know, as we got older, especially for women, as their cycle changes, they need the weight bearing exercise and must not be afraid of it in order to preserve their health. It's a big issue because women always thought they'd become these big bodybuilders. They don't want to have these big muscles and stuff like that. But that rarely happens, does it not?
Well, the thing is, again, it's, when information is given, sometimes it is incorrect information. Sometimes
Yes,
it's misunderstood. So
yes,
it's correct
yes,
information being given, but it's being misunderstood by the receiver. So,
yes,
there is the thing of, oh, well, if I lift weights, I'm going to get big. No, it's about the weight that you're lifting, the number of reps that
yes,
you're
the way
doing.
the
All
way
of
you're
those are the
using it.
things that will determine whether it's muscle growth or muscle strength. But
Yes,
primarily, with various studies that have been done over the years, we realize that resistance training is essential for both men and women as they age. Women, in
yeah,
particular, with the whole osteoporosis issue.
yes.
It has been proven that resistance training does help keep your bones healthy,
bones
as
healthy.
well
Yeah,
as
as
developing your
your
muscle.
muscle. So, yes, muscles are really important to do everyday tasks. I think people separate exercise from everyday activity, and they don't realize
Exactly.
that
You're trying to tell
in all,
them from
yeah,
lifting up your shopping and
yes,
putting your
that's right,
shopping
being
in
able
the
to
cupboard,
carry it.
your training,
Yes,
that all of that is,
yes, that's right. All
you
these
know,
movements are
lifting up your shopping,
preparing you.
putting it in the cupboard, reaching up, all of those things
Yes,
are daily life. It's not about training. And that's where then it becomes, I think with age, it should really become more about functional training. So it's not
yes, we
just about
do. Yeah,
laying down and pushing as much as you can. Try and do
yeah.
things that incorporate weight with movement so that
Yes,
you're
that's right.
incorporating the
Those
two.
your dynamic exercises are far more, and functional training became very big. Early 2000s, late 90s, really came into the exercise field, and really sort of shook it up a bit, because there was this need to, I suppose from our generation, we had more exercise for athletic and performance. And
Yeah.
then this functional element came in really largely towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and has remained because it is totally necessary. Obviously, some people have they're more leisure athletes, and they
Yeah.
want to push themselves out on the triathlons and doing all the madness marathons and all those big
You know,
runs and stuff
it
like
really
that.
is a balance between doing the things you enjoy and doing the things that are necessary
As
as you
essential,
progress through
yes,
life.
absolutely. They're
That is what
absolutely
it
necessary.
really is. You know, and as I said, I think the whole functional training, which is about the resistance and movement and flexibility, so that you're
Yes,
keeping all of those things going.
yeah,
So, you know,
because yeah, fitness has five components. Fitness is not one thing. Flexibility training, coordination, speed, aerobic training, and strength. All of them need to be tested for you to classify yourself as fit. So I often hear these ladies, and they're lovely ladies, because they say, well, I'm doing my Pilates class and blah, blah, blah. And I say to them, well, what about your heart and lungs? What about reducing your body fat? What about your stretching? Because that's just one component. And it's all, what I always teach is a holistic, that we need to look at all the components of fitness and try and get that model into the
well,
brains of,
as you say, the holistic thing, it is of paramount importance. And that's something that's come along in later years
yes,
because health starts from your mind right down to your toes. It starts with
yes,
thinking, the mentality, the attitude to what
yes.
you need to do, and then down to your body to do it. So it is all incorporated. It's not one separate thing from another.
No, and getting these models into as we age, a big part of fitness is our food and the healthy diet.
Absolutely.
So you cannot really achieve fitness without having a healthy diet. And a lot of people, again, there's a bit of a separation that goes on, whereby people think that, oh, I can go to the gym and exercise, and then I can eat what I want. No amount of exercise can really deal with a bad diet. You're never going to can mitigate a really bad diet, or the benefits of you achieving your goals with your blood pressure, cholesterol levels, heart health. All of that is connected with food as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as you say, there is no disconnect. You have to connect them all
Do
together,
all,
and they're one thing.
yes.
They are one thing.
So,
So,
which
for
comes,
you to get the best, but it depends on what you're training for or if you're just living life. But to get the best from your training, whatever you're doing, your diet is essential.
yes.
But then, do you want to live your entire life obsessed about the diet?
Oh, absolutely not. What we
And
want, we always
because
advocate
you see
eighty
how it can
twenty,
become an obsession. However,
80-20,
I
80-20
think you,
margin,
I think you,
80% good, 20% treats.
Well, yeah, whatever. But the individual has to decide that and what they want. And as I said, that's where
Yeah.
it comes from your mind. But
Yeah.
people want things but aren't prepared to put the effort in. You
Yes,
So you
absolutely.
want that body, but you want to eat the food that that
Yeah.
body's got, but you don't like that body. You like that body. Well,
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I do think that diet is important and becomes more so the older you get because of the less activity,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So, the whole thing, as you mentioned earlier, with blood sugar. Now, the biggest misconception is that blood sugar is just about sweets.
Yes, that's
Oh, I
right.
don't drink soft drinks and I don't drink
Yes,
drinks and I don't eat sweets. No, but you drink copious amounts of alcohol,
yes, which is
right?
sugar.
Copious
Yeah,
amounts of alcohol.
loads of
And apart
sugar.
from that, you're eating, well, when you're talking about the Caribbean community,
Yes, the
the big old what
community.
we call hard food. So you're eating boiled dumpling, fried dumpling. You got plantain, yam, sweet potato, and
Yeah,
dasheen and everything on one plate. And
yeah,
you're
you
going, well,
can't.
don't you understand that carbohydrate turns to sugar?
Yes, it
Carbohydrate turns to sugar.
is sugar. Yeah, it's
And you are not
starches.
working hard enough
Yeah,
to burn all that
physically.
off.
Yeah, to
So
physically.
you cannot reasonably think that you can consume that amount of carbohydrate and be healthy.
Yes. Not you, as I said, you can have it as a treat on certain days. We live in a Western society. We are no longer doing manual work in the way that we were, and that's all people of all communities are not doing. In the
Indeed.
West, we are not doing. Our life has become incredibly sedentary with the advent of technology and computers. So we're sitting
But
down more
without
than
that, we wouldn't be able
ever
to do
before.
this here today.
Yes, absolutely, which is fantastic. This is how great the technology is. But at the same time, our communities, what we love or what feeds us, not only in a physical way, but also in a spiritual way, because there's foods from our childhood, maybe foods that bond us within our community. We have to put them into perspective now because they will seriously impact on our health and our fitness levels. And
Absolutely. But
um,
the thing is, it's about learning and it's about
yeah,
education and it's about
yes,
realizing that what went before doesn't necessarily have to be relevant now.
no, or
And
adaptive.
because people think, oh, well, my grandmother ate that and my
Yeah,
whoever ate that. And
yeah,
yeah, but you're living a completely different life.
yeah. Complete. It's
And
so
the
different.
knowledge is
Yeah.
there now that they didn't have then.
Yes, absolutely.
So, it really
I,
is down to the individuals to grab hold of the knowledge and implement it in their lives for their benefit.
Yes, because they taught us, our ancestors or our parents taught us some very good habits, like eating freshly cooked food every day and cooking your own meals. There was none of this processed and ultra processed foods that is so big in the press now of what people have become used to. None of that existed. And I'm so grateful to my mum for teaching me you cook your meals all day. It doesn't matter what you've got going on in your life. You cook your
You
food
cook your
fresh.
food.
Yeah.
And
And
okay, yes, you might cook your food today and have some leftovers and have it tomorrow, but it is still
yes,
fresh cooked
freshly
food
cooked food.
that
Yeah.
you know everything that's in it.
In
You
it.
look at
Yes.
the food that's out there and you've got words with all 16 letters in it that you can't even pronounce. And
Yes.
you're
That's
saying, well, I
that.
don't even know what that is in here or what it does, but it's in what I've opened and I'm cooking
Yes.
to eat, you know?
Yes,
So
it's
for me, really,
so much man-made stuff is
yeah.
impacting by the time people are getting older. This is where a lot of excess weight and potentially injury
And
to
the
our
thing is,
systems
I'd say
is going
people of
on.
a certain generation, as you just said, people of a
Yes,
certain generation grew up with that mentality. They grew up
yes,
with the mentality of things being fresh and not out of cans and
yes,
out of packets.
which was
I
very
always
good.
say, because I can only refer to my experience being of Caribbean parentage,
Yes,
we were doing organic before it had a name.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We didn't know it was organic.
No, that's
Somebody
right.
somewhere
Y-
put that inverted commas and made it their own, and it's now a word. But
yes.
when your grandmother used to say, "Go and get that spinach from over there in the
Yes.
garden,"
Yes, or your callaloo or whatever they'd grown,
whatever they're growing. And as well, things only came in seasons. You had
Yes,
to
that's
wait
right.
for it to come. So,
Yes.
when you're looking now and you're getting these big ripe pineapples and watermelons in December, you're going, well, how has this happened? Because what
Yes,
have you put in this to make it happen?
it's but I think and that's what makes our generation so unique and special, that we have that relationship to our food because of our ancestors and our community, that was really positive for us. So we've just got to go that extra more step and now edit out and put into proportion what we should be eating where. Have your hard foods. If you're having a stressful day and you're doing a lot of physical stuff, yes, you can integrate a few of those hard foods in.
Yeah,
You can make
absolutely.
them a resistant starch by cooking them before, cooling them down. Having them the next day makes them more fibrous, so they go through the body. They're not so sugary. Put a bit of fat with them. Well, we would always have a sauce. There'd always be with cooked protein or something with a bit of fat, so that we can manage those carbohydrates in our community, in our diet, and they're not detrimental. Because for me, especially when I'm working really hard and running around a lot, before my body, if I feel my body is going to disintegrate, I'm going to hard food. I'm going
Yeah.
straight back home to get the build, because they almost behave like anabolic steroids, those
Well,
foods
literally,
to us.
but they're
Yeah, they
naturally
are,
so.
but
They're
they're
naturally so.
natural. And
Naturally so.
in
Especially
another,
things like breadfruit.
yes,
In
yams.
particular, that is one
Yeah,
that is high in fiber, but so
yes,
many minerals,
in,
vitamins
ye-
within it. And
yes,
as you
that's
say,
right.
it acts as a natural
Yeah,
steroid. Things
yeah,
like soursop,
yes,
but
absolutely. Which
that's fine because it's a fruit. But things like the breadfruit and sweet potato,
the
they're all good for you. And that's
yeah,
why I laugh, now when people want to tell us about how good a sweet potato is. You used to have sweet potato till you were crying. I don't want any more. I'm said, we know what it is, but
yeah,
it is about managing the quantities
yes,
and
that's
the
right.
regularity with which
Yes,
you have
yes.
that kind of heavy
Boost,
food
yeah,
to make
boost,
sure
yeah,
that, yes, there are days when you're going to be exhausted or days when, tomorrow is going to be a busy day. I won't be get to eat
yes,
much. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Have
fine.
a bit of
But to say
that,
to have your
yeah.
plate like that every day, you're a walking disaster. You're a disaster waiting to
Yeah.
happen.
I would like to touch on another aspect of sort of health as we get older, which is, there's two things actually. There's the sleep hygiene, which is really that has become a real explosion, especially with people not being able to sleep as they get older because of hormone changes, because of particular addictions to blue light and technology. The technology is actually destroying their sleep patterns, addiction to social media, what you're being on that to all hours of the night and stuff like that. And I have to say that I'm really quite fastidious with how I sleep, how much sleep I get. My partner thinks I'm bonkers, but I think it's so important to have good quality sleep as you age, because that's the time when your body's actually doing all the major repair work that it
And
needs to do.
repair and recovery. That's
Yeah.
why you see when people are seriously ill, they put
Yes.
into a coma because
Yes. Yeah.
that's where the only time your body really heals,
Yeah.
recovers, repairs.
Yes. They
For
need.
me, I do absolutely agree that the sleep pattern is essential. Even with myself, I'm disciplined. Even if I'm in my bed by 9:30 and not sleeping, I'm in
Yes.
my bed
Yes.
and I'm
That's what I will do.
relaxing.
Yes.
I'm
Absolutely.
relaxing. It might not necessarily go to sleep
Yes.
immediately, but it is being in that relaxation state
Yes.
that
That
is
is
also recuperative.
really important. Well, there have been studies where there are links made between sleep hygiene, or the ability to sleep and sleep properly and deeply, with dementia and Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
because the amyloid, the plaque that builds up in the brain, can only be removed, and is only removed
When it's
when
at
we go
rest.
it. Yes, when the brain actually, they've done
It's
the
at
brain
rest.
scans, and the deep brain scans are showing that this is the only time that the brain is the body can remove that. So Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and general, senile behavior is greatly enhanced with simply being able to rest and sleep. And how many people do we know that
Yeah,
suffer?
I mean, the thing is, it does 100% affect your performance.
Yes,
It
and
does.
you can't perform in the gym, or you can't exercise then. So the big
But you can't
impact
even
on that.
perform in life
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
you want to,
yeah.
or should, at your full potential, if you don't sleep well.
Yes. And a lot of people would come to me when I was a holistic personal trainer. And one of the first questions I'm saying to them, what did you do last night? How did you sleep? Because that would actually dictate what I could draw from the body, how much the body's going to give me in performance if they have slept or not slept. So sleep is very important. And finally, I'd just like to tackle quickly as our final kind of like tip for fitness as we age. And the final thing is stress. Now,
Oh,
as
I'm
we
the king of that, honey.
well, I find that as we've got older, it's a plus and a minus. Certain types of stresses increase, and then other ones. The type of stress that I would say increases is to do with people, but basically dying around us. As we age, there are more people moving that way, transitioning, rather that, and that can bring family relationships with friends, all that type of thing in
Well,
recent
it's
years
funny you
has
bring up
taken.
stress because
Mm,
the two are very much connected. If you're stressed, you don't
mm.
necessarily sleep very well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So, those two are very connected. So you have to, and people say, oh, well, I have a glass of wine to help me sleep. And
Yes.
they don't realize, well, that actually prevents you from sleeping. That doesn't really help you sleep.
No, that's
Alcohol
correct.
doesn't help you sleep.
Yeah.
So it really is, as you say, and I love the word holistic,
Yes.
because, as I said, fitness is about the whole thing. It's
The
about
whole
brain
picture.
is functioning, your mind
Yes.
is functioning, which is about the stress and the sleep. It's not just about how much you can push in the gym or how fast
Yes,
you run on the treadmill.
absolutely.
Fitness and health is the whole thing. So really and truly, you try to say to people, you've got to find a way to manage your stress.
Yes.
You have to find a way to manage your stress. And the idea is to not get stressed.
Yes.
you
Well,
know,
fitness can help you to de-stress at a low level. If
absolutely.
you're a really stressed person, I wouldn't suggest or even suggest for you to start a very heavy workout or anything, because that's just going to escalate the problem. What you need to do is gentle movements to
Yeah.
reduce adrenaline in the
Adrenaline,
brain.
that's it.
Yeah, it's through the system, walking, stretching, still movement, but then relaxing
Taking
and
deep breaths,
yes,
oxygenating your blood, breathing.
absolutely, which you can do when in these gentler forms of fitness. But as we age, I think that certain things we let go, spiritually, emotionally, we let go a lot of the stresses that we had when we were younger, things that used to give us the angst, about, oh, I'm
Absolutely.
not getting this in my career or blah, blah, blah. All of that, your children have grown up a bit more. All of those sorts of stresses tend to reduce. But the other stresses that come in are to do with, people, you know, possibly transitioning and how we deal with those losses, so it's a loss
Yeah.
and grief and stuff like that. And how we manage ourselves mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally within those changes. So we're seeing big dynamic of changes taking place in our
In
lives.
later lives. Yeah.
Yeah, in later lives, and how we can support other people within our communities,
Well, I mean, you
within
can
our
always
family and
speak to
stuff.
people, you can advise people, but ultimately, I always go back to how your mind works, because how your mind
Yes.
works is what determines how you handle whatever is coming to you in life.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
And as a
So if
fit
you're of
person,
that kind of anxious person,
mm,
whatever comes to you in life is going to be the worst thing in the world, the biggest problem in the world. Whereas somebody else who's got a different mentality towards life, dealing
yes,
with the same
a
thing,
life for you.
but
Yeah.
they are not in that stress state.
Yes, absolutely.
And I try to live by example. So for me, I just think stress is such a waste of energy, because instead of
Yes.
being stressed, get on and deal with what's happening.
Well, sometimes, yeah, people need to deal with the core problem
Yeah,
instead of but once those hormones kick in, it can be difficult for people to actually act. Sometimes it can be very debilitating
absolutely. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
they allow it by not acting, by not doing certain things. Things can escalate. So I'd like to say, Mr. Barrie, a very big thank you for coming on today and
My pleasure.
talking so eloquently about fitness as we age holistically, and giving the listeners some of your insights and tips into, how they can help themselves get started and keep healthy as
Thank you
we
for
get a
asking me. And the message I would like to leave is just remember, as you get older, life doesn't stop until you stop. So,
yes,
so you
absolutely.
have to keep going,
Yes,
and
and
you
you have
realize
to
that
keep
you have to
going.
keep strength in your upper body, to
Yeah.
sit in a chair, to get up off of
Yes.
the bed, to sit
Yes,
down on the bed.
all those
You
little
still need to
movements.
use your arms. So
Yes,
you've got to really keep moving. You've got to keep moving. And don't think that because you reach a certain age, oh, well, that's it. I can just sit in this chair until I transition. That's not a life that anyone really wants to live.
no, thank you very much, Mr. Barrie Thomas. And you've been listening to Health Matters. I am Jacqueline Harvey, and you can find links in the bio connected on this podcast, or email us at info@jacquelineharvey.co.uk or info@cchlive.co.uk. Thank you very much. Bye for now.